First-party data is now the most powerful tool in any digital marketer's or marketer's toolbox. And that is very true for us. And it's a real focus for us now to utilize that first-party data in the most effective way possible through personalization, which is driven via segmentation.
Welcome to the Ecommerce Toolbox Expert Perspectives, a podcast by Noibu, where we explore the elite strategies and cutting-edge insights with our expert guests. Get ready to propel your e-commerce business to the next level.
Welcome to another episode of the Ecommerce Toolbox Expert's Perspective. Joining us today, we have Phil Clark, all the way over from the UK, who heads up paid media at a very, very famous international brand from my home country, Canada. And the brand is a brand we all know called Canada Goose. So welcome, Phil.
Hello, good to be here.
Awesome. So Phil, I always like to start off by learning a bit more about your career journey. So obviously you're over in the UK, Canada Goose is in Toronto. How did a guy from the Brighton area in the UK end up heading up such an important department at one of the top 10 retailers of Canada in Canada Goose? Maybe talk to us a bit about your career journey.
Yeah, sure. So I started in media about 8 years ago now, and that was after a good 6-7 years in the music industry. I started my professional career managing DJs and producers. Did that for a while, and a big part of that was digital marketing and marketing in general. Hit my 30th birthday, realized that the music industry wasn't going to take me where I needed to go, so I started looking for other areas and career changes. And media and digital marketing was a place that I thought was a good fit, and it really was. So I joined agency side. What was then called Reprise Media is now Kinesso. Got to the role of business director, working with a number of different brands, and retail was an area that I really enjoyed working in, supporting brands primarily with performance marketing. And then that evolved into more of a digital role, helping brands establish a balance and integration between brand and performance marketing. And a lot of brands, especially in retail, had a real disparity between what they were investing at the top of the funnel and what their strategy was at the top of the funnel and what was happening right at the bottom. One of those clients of mine was Canada Goose, and they were a client of mine for about 4 years. And then the opportunity came up, and it was a very natural fit for me to transition over to the brand and continue my work with them, but from behind the curtain.
I love it. Obviously, now you're heading up digital marketing and paid media at Canada Goose. What are some of the unique challenges that you've encountered kind of crafting strategies, given that Canada Goose is a luxury and a premium product? Like, what are some of those challenges and how do you address them?
I think that's essentially it. It's within luxury, you give yourself an additional challenge of navigating through a landscape that is, for fashion, is so heavily focused on fast fashion and promotions. In the last few years, I think post-COVID, promotions have become more and more prominent. Black Friday went from a week to a month to, I think in the last 2 years, we've just seen Black Friday even lose its prominence because discounts are year round now. And when you see yourself in the SERP in a Google shopping feed, it's very evident that discounts and promotions are readily available. So being a brand that will never offer discounts, we set ourselves additional challenges to sit aside these brands and make sure we stand out. And that's done through various strategies. We ensure that we're always dynamic in our targeting. So we're putting our product in front of people in the right moment, and we've got relevant messaging. One of our strengths at Canada Goose is the product and the heritage and the craftsmanship. So we focus on digital placements that really allow for storytelling. So we can demonstrate the heritage of the brand, but also the quality of the product in all of our touch points with consumers.
That's cool. I love it. And as we've seen, like you mentioned, it's really become discount obsessed. I think there's always a pendulum that kind of swings and depends on the client segments that you're going after. How do you ensure that the strategies that you're employing are responding directly to big leaps and advancements in technology? Do you ever kind of think about how your strategies might have to evolve to stay relevant? Curious in terms of how you're looking at the technology disruption relative to what you're working on.
Yeah, testing, and more testing. I tend not to dive in feet first into new trends. A couple of years ago, we were all trying to work out how we get into the metaverse and how we stay relevant for a younger audience in this virtual world. In a moment like that, personally, I decided to take a step back and look at what's happening and how consumers are responding. Often that proves wise, but also you can't stand back. I'm sure I'm inundated with new technologies and new offers and sales spills about different opportunities, and it would be unwise to ignore those. We're always testing. Testing is at the forefront of everything we do. And as well as testing bidding strategies, audiences, creative, we always ensure that we've got space to test new technology as well, whether that be AI or new measurement platforms. It's intrinsic to what we do to ensure that we're always growing and getting more from our investment.
No, that makes perfect sense. And one thing that you'd mentioned that I want to really tease out is around KPIs and measurement. And I'm curious, obviously measurement's very critical for digital marketing. How are you approaching ensuring that what you're working on has an ROI outside of the obvious KPIs of like, I spent money here, therefore these people purchased, right? I think with a luxury brand, often it's more complicated than that, especially if a significant percentage of your sales are potentially offline. So really the question is, how do you approach measuring ROI and performance metrics around kind of which KPIs you select to focus on?
It's one of the most important pieces of our work, actually. It doesn't feel like the sexy stuff, but it is the most important thing to ensure that we're measuring the right KPIs and we're using the right sources and the right models. So establishing a robust measurement framework has been critical to my work, not just at Canada Goose, but for all the other brands that I've worked with, being agency side as well. We use an MMM, and that's been so valuable for us in really understanding the value of our offline media and brand building and what brand building can actually do for the bottom line. And as you say, we're in physical retail as well as wholesale. And it's incredibly important for us to understand what media is driving retail sales. And we're never going to get that from analytics. So we start at the top with MMM, but then understanding the next layer, which is incrementality testing, to validate what we're seeing in the MMM, but also start understanding what KPIs really make a difference. On a daily basis, on a weekly basis, we need something to optimize to. We need something that we believe is actually moving the dial of the bottom line. So part of the measurement framework for us and the testing that I was talking about earlier is testing to confirm and establish what those weekly, daily optimization KPIs are that are moving the needle. It might be ROAS, it might be cost per click, it might be an engagement metrics, it might be attention, but you need to test to understand what it is that is moving your ultimate KPI. The ultimate KPI for us is always incrementality and incremental ROAS. When we're spending, it's not just how much paid search spend is driving paid search revenue, but how much paid search spend is driving revenue across our business through e-commerce, through retail, through wholesale, and understanding that at every touch point. Only then can we really get a truly effective balance of our media mix to maximize the revenue for the business. So it's constantly evolving. It's a loop where platform KPIs inform what you're testing, and what you're testing validates your MMM at the very top.
For those that might not know what MMM is, do you mind elaborating just on that KPI and that metric, please?
Yeah, media mix model or marketing mix model. And effectively, it's rather than being any sort of click-based or cookie-based metric, it looks at sales, overall sales over time, and spend over time. And it, as well as factoring in your media channel investments, it factors in other factors like the weather or competition, things like a global pandemic and the impact that may have had on the business. That helps you establish what your baseline sales are, and then helps you understand what your investment in all channels, online and offline, what impact they've had on your overall sales.
Cool. Thanks. Very, very thorough explanation. Curious on the personalization side, you'd mentioned earlier AI, and those are kind of two things that start to maybe get brought together in a lot of conversations. We're seeing obviously personalization becoming more and more important, especially in luxury. I think if you look at one thing that everyone's always been trying to do is how do you bring the in-store experience online? So curious, how do you leverage consumer data and insights to actually make those personalized experience for your target audiences? And what are some of the kind of high-level strategies that you've employed?
First party data is now the most powerful tool in any digital marketers or marketers toolbox. And that is very true for us. And it's a real focus for us now to utilize that first party data in the most effective way possible through personalization, which is driven via segmentation. So breaking down our customers and not just by demographics like gender and location and age, but also their purchase behavior, their interests, the categories that they have shown interest in, the products they have bought previously, the timelines and their life cycle with us as a brand, understanding those attributes. So then we can communicate on a personal level with those customers, with the products that are relevant and the timing that's really relevant for us. So nailing that segmentation, I think it is absolutely critical. And we use technology for that, and we should use technology for that and the advancement of AI, applying that as much as possible. But I think it's really important to take a human approach to really understand your customers and break down those behaviors and what might be effective.
I think it's interesting. And when you look at luxury brands as well, I don't know what the average, and you don't have to comment on this, but I know that the average visits or the average interactions with a product before purchasing it with a $1,000+ jacket versus a pair of socks is probably materially different. So there's just more touch points. Yeah, no, that's definitely something to consider when you're personalizing, because to your point, there's likely a sales cycle from like first touch to purchase, and it's likely not the same day for most users. So yeah, very, very interesting.
And the trick there is getting that journey right across different channels. Within paid, it can be fairly straightforward to have a first, second, third touch point strategy through retargeting if those channels are exclusively programmatic, paid social, paid search. When you bring email into the equation or even physical touch points in store, that's where you can really bring out the gold in a personalization strategy, having tech that integrates your online and offline experience where people are coming into your store and your store ambassadors understand who that customer is and understand those behaviors. That's when you can really unlock the power of personalization.
Yeah, I'm fully aligned on that. And I think one thing that I want to talk about next is something that I've seen a bit of a rise on, and I'm not saying it's new, but definitely I'm hearing more of it in the market now around social commerce and kind of influencer marketing. How do you integrate some of those elements into your strategy, either to drive brand awareness, engagement, or revenue? And like, how do you think that really impacts your overall marketing strategy and from an importance standpoint?
It's been a bit of a roller coaster with social commerce. And now, there's TikTok Shop and Instagram and all the other social channels are becoming more directly shoppable. But using social as a performance marketing channel, as a commerce channel, is something that we've long been doing. I've been long been doing with brands and was really becoming quite powerful. And then with iOS updates or privacy legislations, it then became more and more difficult. And it's great that these platforms are now coming with direct commerce opportunities to drive more revenue through those additional channels. It's always been central to what we do. But earlier, in years gone by, e-commerce was the predominant D2C channel. And so commerce through digital marketing and through social has always been very important. And we've done that by creating as frictionless a journey as possible from first touch point through to the point of purchase, taking away as many blockers as we can, whether that be through converting on our own e-commerce platform or in the platform directly. It will always remain central to what we're doing. With influencers, we've worked with influencers for a long time from a brand awareness perspective, and are certainly seeing, as well as the industry is, an increase in our more demand generation or even commercial tactics with influencers. For me personally, with influencers, it's really important for us to pay attention to the curations of who you're working with. We want the benefit of influencers is they can really connect with consumers in an authentic way. and maybe in a way that brands can't do themselves through their own platforms. But it's really important that we're being responsible in that. And I read recently that the glossy approach of the perfect lifestyle is actually losing favor with a lot of consumers, which doesn't surprise me. I think the younger, more tech savvy consumer is really becoming aware of a glossed over facade of some influencers, and ensuring that we're curating and working with really authentic influencers to maximize that connection with our consumers is very important.
Yeah. It's something that's interesting to really think about and chat about. I think what you're saying is, I mean, I was listening to a podcast the other day and they talked about how it was actually when the Prince of Monaco married someone from the US, and she then worked with Hermes to actually release what became one of their famous bags. I forget the name right now. That she was photographed, Time magazine. This is a long time, like 50, 60 years ago. And like, that's influencer marketing to a point, right? Like that's just in print media. So to your point earlier, it's not brand new, but it's definitely something that's important, and making sure that you could actually craft the story and the image that matches the brand, and picking that, I think, is something that's super, super critical.
I read recently actually that the first recorded influencer marketing was back in the 1700s with a British potter who made pottery, who used an image of the king using one of his products in his marketing. It's a great effect. It had a huge impact on his business. And so influencer marketing in terms of using celebrity to impact the sales of your brand is hundreds of years old and has always been impactful. And now with the rise of various social platforms and the diversification of social platforms is becoming the number one way to reach consumers. I think one of the things we test is influencer content versus branded content on TikTok, on Instagram. And we do that because we know that influencer content leads to far greater engagement than branded content. And that's not just a Canada Goose thing, but a industry-wide and actually a platform recognized result. So it's critical. We have to work with these partners and find the right partners that are authentic to our brand and our consumers.
Fully aligned. As we look to wrap up, Phil, I'm curious, what are some of the things that you're most excited about in the digital marketing space for the next 12 months?
Yeah, I think the big focus and attention is on AI and developments there. But if you ask me 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, what sort of developments were coming in digital marketing over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, what am I excited about? You'd probably always be talking about the same thing. It's advancements in measurement, advancements in targeting, AI. We've just been calling machine learning a number of years ago. So we're always talking about the same things and getting excited about the same things. Apart from 2021, I think it was, when it was just metaverse. But I'm just excited about really nailing the right things and getting it right, testing, optimizing, using the platforms that we've got and the models that we've got to drive growth. There's such a challenge now, more than ever, for the digital marketing industry, the cookieless future of digital marketing. Something else that if you'd asked me 1, 2, 3 years ago, we'd be having the same conversation. But it appears that come June, the curtain really is coming down on cookies, at least from a Chrome perspective. So having how we navigate that as an industry, how we all sort of club together and find those solutions and best practices to be able to maintain the performance and grow the performance, how we use the tools, the platforms, the know-how, the knowledge that we've got to continue to grow through the increasing challenges that hit us as digital marketers.
Love it. Makes a ton of sense. Thank you so much for your time, Phil. Really appreciate it. Loved deep diving in on this topic. I think to your point, you have a very unique role in a luxury brand and trying to balance driving results and basically propping up the brand for the other channels as well. So super valuable content. Thanks again. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Thanks very much. You too. Enjoyed it.
The Ecommerce Toolbox Expert Perspectives is brought to you by Noibu. To find out more about Noibu and how we can help you debug your e-commerce site and rocket your revenue, visit www.noibu.com. That's Noibu.com. And then make sure to search for the Ecommerce Toolbox Expert Perspectives on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Noibu, thanks for listening.